Hello classes, it's been a very, very long time since you've seen me. And it's been even longer, or it's going to be longer, since I've seen you. Miss you all very, very much. We've just finished the lovely month of April, which was National Poetry Month. And I'll take you through the different poems in our poetry packet. We're going to start at the back with one of the last poems. It's not part of a poetry pair. It's a poem that I put in there by itself, but it helps us kind of learn some of the ideas of close analysis that I really want to kind of focus on. These are things that are going to help you if we were going to have a final exam, but will definitely help you on your regents that you'll take junior year. It's Robert Frost's The Road Not Taken. Again, it's one of the last poems in your packet, and I'm about to be stung by a bee. This is going to be the best video ever. This is when my teacher died of anaphylactic shock. It'd be fantastic. The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. You can also go on to the enhancement or the enrichment page of my website, and you can actually hear Robert Frost read this himself. It's a link to a YouTube video of Frost reading this aloud. The Road Not Taken. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though, as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. All right, let's look at some notes. Like almost every single poem in your packet, it's a lyric poem. Lyric poetry is defined as the intense personal thoughts and feelings of a single speaker in a single subject. If you're looking at poetry as two large subsets of overall thing that we call poetry, one half would be narrative poetry. We've read Beowulf, we've read the Odyssey. You know what long, big narrative poetry looks like. It has all the elements of a short story or a novel. Plot, setting, method of narration, all sorts of stuff like that, characterization. Lyric poetry doesn't generally have to have some of that. It might have some of that stuff, but it doesn't need to. Lyric poetry, intense personal thoughts and feelings of a single speaker on a single subject. It's written in a series of 5-line stanzas called quinets. There are 4 of them in the poem. It has a rhyme scheme of A-B, A-A-B, and in a second I'll set up the phone as a document camera and I'll show you exactly how that works if you don't know how to dope out rhyme scheme, but that runs throughout the poem. The next stanza would be C-D, C-C-D, all on down to the end of the poem. The overarching literary technique, or the controlling literary technique in this poem, I think for all of us, would be metaphor or symbolism. I'll take either one, I don't care which you go for. But it basically means that the two roads represent a choice or a turning point in a life. So those roads that start off the very beginning of the poem are the things that control the message of the poem. A message that Mr. Abernethy sometimes differs from a lot of other people in what it actually says. Time is very interesting in this poem. It seems to exist in all 3 phases of time, the past, the present, and the future. And you can look at some of the verbs, if you'd like, and break that down and see how the different verb tenses are used. The other thing that's important about this poem and why it's not paired up with anything, it allows us to work on our skills of literary analysis. It's also probably the most famous poem of the 20th century. So from just a cultural education standpoint, it's a really important poem for you to know. It's going to be referred to in a million other films, songs, and other pieces of literature that you're going to read throughout the rest of your life. So, those are the big things that I want you to have. Please make sure you can scribble them maybe on the bottom of your poem or on the side, where you have a set of notes set up, however you want to organize your particular notes. There is going to be a poetry test or assessment that I'll load onto Castle Learning at the end of all this. But these are the big things that I'd want you to know about The Road Not Taken. I'll be speaking up here because the microphone's behind me. Here's The Road Not Taken, as you hopefully would be able to print it out from a printer that you have or have access to. And this is a great way to take notes. Also on my enrichment page, you saw an English teacher go through Theodore Rothke's poem, My Papa's Waltz, and he does pretty much the same thing. He will break down the entire poem and have an entire page of his notes generated from his pulling apart of, or his analysis of the poem. So here's the road not taken. Start off, of course, with stanza 1, first quintet. 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood. Sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. So we have these 2 roads. It's a yellow wood. So if you were thinking of something like setting, we're probably thinking it's somewhere in the fall. The leaves are turning yellow. Okay? So that would be a note I might take if I was a fastidious student. It's fall or autumn. And here's the rhyme scheme. If those of you who have never done rhyme scheme before, this is new to you. Would rhymes with stood. Both rhymes with, I'm sorry, I might have screwed up the rhyme scheme. I just realized on the other thing. Would rhymes with stood and could. Both rhymes with both and growth. So it's actually, if I screwed it up on the original sign, I apologize. It's A, B, A, B. Hopefully I have that right. I'll take a look at that again. Going down the rest of the poem, fair rhymes with where and there, so that would be C's. Claim and same rhyme, so that's D, D, and all the way down. You'd go to the next set of letters. Lay would be E, along with day and way. Black would be F, and back would be F. Sigh and I would be G. By would also get a G, hence, and difference would get an H. So if you're looking at the entire rhyme scheme of the poem, that's how you would try and break it down. But here we're looking at diverged. Diverged is past tense, of course. 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood. Sorry, I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood. Stood is past tense as well. Whereas you hop to the next line, then took the other as just as fair. Took, that's happening right now, because it was grassy and wanted where. Apparently, one of the 2 paths, one of the 2 roads, it wants where. It's longing for someone to walk on it. It's longing for someone to travel it. Both that morning equally lay in steps. Leaves no step had drawn back. Once again, we have these leaves that are falling, and as the speaker looks at them, it seems that it needs someone to walk on it. It needs someone to use this path. Oh, I kept the first for another day. There's this sense of longing in the speaker. The speaker says, I kept the first for another day. I'll go back and eventually I'll try that experience, or I'll try that road, or I'll take that path. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. So at the time, I'm in the present, I can also look into the past and say, I doubted. I don't think, if I'm honest with myself, I'll never really get there. And for me, this is where the poem really hinges. It's on this last stanza, the last quintet. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Here's where the speaker looks into the future. So, diverged is past, stood, long I stood, and took and stuff is present. But I shall be, somewhere ages and ages hence, all that stuff is future. So it's an interesting poem in that way, and that Frost was able to construct an idea and be able to look at it from 3 or 4 dimensions, knowing exactly how he felt in the past, how he felt in the immediate moment, and even in the present, being able to project into the future and say, I'm going to feel this way about it. 2 roads diverged in a wood, and this is very important, these 2 dashes, a lot of people forget them. I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Now, what kind of sound do we make when we sigh, and what does it mean? Well, I think he put it into the poem. And it's right here. It's this dramatic pause. I shall be telling this somewhere ages and ages hence. When I tell this story, I'm going to pause dramatically. I took the one less traveled by. And people love this poem, and rightfully so. I like teaching it because it encapsulates something that Mr. Abernathy truly believes in. Literature, and poetry especially, is a lot like a recipe. You might love chili, let's say. You can make chili any way you want. Maybe you put jalapenos in your chili. Maybe you put cayenne pepper in your chili. Other people don't. And when you're making your own chili, you can make your recipe any way you want. A lot of people like to read this poem, and I'll tell you, this is Robert Frost's anthem to rebellion, or anthem to being your own person, being unique, striking out on your own path, and doing that thing that other people don't do. In fact, when he tells it, he says, I'll even try and frame it that way. I took the path less traveled by. Frost himself has said in papers and in letters and stuff that a lot of people misunderstand it because they just want to take the different parts of the recipe that they like and make the chili that makes them comfortable, the chili that gives them comfort, cook the food that makes them happy. If you're going to follow his recipe, you have to use all the ingredients that are in his recipe. And the two center stanzas really contain a lot of important facts. That took the other as just as fair and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. A lot of people want to stop right there, hop to the end and tell you, I'm unique, I'm different, I did this thing in my life different from everybody else. Whereas everyone else went off to college in September after their senior year of high school, I joined the military. Or I hitchhiked around Europe with my friend in a backpack. Or I walked the Appalachian Trail. Whatever cool, unique, rebellious thing they did that makes them different. Frost says that's not the case. As though for the passing there had worn them really about the same. And this is where Mr. Abernathy differs from a lot of other people. The two roads are virtually indistinguishable. It's the same type of road. Both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. It's a whim. It's dumb luck. But the poem isn't really for young people. It's not an anthem for you young people to go out and do that new and extraordinary thing and be your own person. Although that's a fantastic message, this just doesn't seem to be the message here in this poem. It's more a warning for people like me, like Mr. Abernathy. When you tell young people about formative experiences in your life, don't chalk it up to some incredible thing within you to be unique and different, okay? I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverge in a wood, and take that dramatic pause and really send your message home. Don't lie to young people. Tell the story the way it is. Through dumb luck, I took one road instead of the other. They were equally indistinguishable at the time. Maybe that road has made a difference in my life, but in terms of it looking different, in terms of it being unique, of course it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. Both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Both roads want you to walk on them. It's up to you. And sometimes your decisions in life can come down to a really well-reasoned decision. Sometimes it can come down to a whim on your own part. But be careful how you tell the story to young people. Robert Frost, two roads diverge in a wood. And, the road not taken. Sometimes if you look up two roads diverge in a wood, you'll find this. But the focus of the poem is the road not taken. Okay? Be careful of that road not taken. Don't be too wistful for it. You don't know where it would have led you. The road you took is the thing that got you to where you are right now. That has made all the difference. Hopefully you generate some notes. Hopefully you're aware that the two roads, of course, are in fact the symbol or the metaphor. Hopefully you're able to see the different aspects of time, and hopefully you're able to see that rhyme scheme. Thanks, folks.